Flex Lewis here, straight out of the Lair. All right, guys, straight out of the Lair, episode 5. We joined today by the legend, one of the greatest of all time, Jay Cutler. Thank you very much for joining us.
Man, I wanted 5 Olympia titles. That was my goal. And I ended up with 4, so this fits better. This is how I'm getting my 5th. 5th straight out of the Lair episode.
Well, listen, it's an honor to have you here. Obviously, you and I have a lot of history. Again, we'll get into that later on in the episode, but, I like to start from the beginning. Born and raised, August 3rd, 1973.
Yeah.
Worcester. Talk us about your childhood.
Yeah, man, it's, to bring back history, I grew up in Massachusetts. I grew up in a small town called Sterling, actually, so it's a suburb. And youngest of 7 kids.
Wow.
Parents, my dad was a highway superintendent, and my mom basically was raising the children. And my parents kind of divorced early, right when I was like 4 years old, and my mom actually moved to Florida. So my dad kind of watched over all of us kids. And my brothers and sisters really raised me because there's a big age gap. My sister and I are a year apart, and then there's a 10-year age gap.
Oh, wow.
So they were kind of took care of us.
Yeah.
And watched over stuff. So my dad was working all the time. And you can imagine, my father was he had 7 kids living in the house.
Wow.
And, we kind of found our way, and I had a lot of responsibility early. And, I have a lot of great memories. I mean, I was super, super active, riding bikes and doing things with the neighborhood kids. And I was fortunately, able to start working when I was 11. My brothers opened a concrete business, and I really attribute that concrete business to my core for the bodybuilding, because not only the structure of working after school, weekends, school vacations, whatever it was, I also developed a body. I was pretty rugged, and that really gave me, the work ethic, because we talk about the physical thing with bodybuilding. And at 12 years old, I saw a picture of Chris Dickerson, and I said, this is like amazing. I remember showing my oldest brother, and he said, why would you want to look like that, And I just had this thing with the action heroes that back then it was like Batman and Superman, and we had all our little action figure dolls and stuff like that, and I was just always intrigued by that. But the strange thing about me is, like, as a teenager and at around 12, I saw like the Rocky films, and I saw Stallone, and I saw Bloodsport, and Van Damme and Stallone were like my heroes. And I actually didn't even watch Pumping Iron for the first time until I was actually a professional bodybuilder.
Wow.
Huh.
Because we didn't have, like, I don't know, we were very, we grew up on our farm, so we weren't allowed to do, like, I never had sugar cereals, or like, we ate a lot from our gardens, and we raised cattle and whatever else. So it was kind of like we were very we didn't have like supermarkets in the town that we're in or anything. So my dad would do the shopping, and we were just limited on what we would be able to eat. But most of it was from the ground, or off the local farms or whatever. Yeah. And I was basically a great eater at that point, and I didn't eat a lot, but it kind of got me like that, like I said, that structure.
Yeah, you just eating really good from a young age, by the sound of it.
I wasn't allowed, and that kind of carried over, and I'm kind of known in fitness as like the guy that followed a regimen diet the whole time, and I still, to this day, like, I'm still really particular about how I eat, where you see now it's really shifted to like people's cheat meals and the bad food that they eat, because of social media. But as we grew up as magazine guys, not to get too far ahead, but like, you always wanted to project like the great things that made you successful. And now today, I think it's kind of just a free-for-all with that. But the early beginnings were great for me. I always wanted to be great at something. I wanted to make my family proud, probably more than what I wanted to be. I never imagined I would be a professional bodybuilder. Like, you don't just wake up one day and decide, I'm going to be a bodybuilder, because the biggest question, even when I started, was like, how do you make money at this?
Right.
A lot of people ask that now.
Like it's a hobby, right? And very few, as we know, make a very successful career and financial support from what they do. But it helps you build relationships and pivot to other ventures, which we all have, right?
Yeah.
The top guys. And that's really, what was so super about what it was. But I just wanted to be great. Like I was a dreamer as a kid. I was a so-so student just because I didn't really like paying attention as much as some of the other kids. I wasn't disciplined by my parents to say, you need to get straight A's. And I did go to college, but it was kind of just like, well, I'll go to college because that's kind of the thing to do.
Yeah.
But it wasn't my passion.
So taking it back a little bit, you were working with your brother, Cutler Brothers, right?
Yeah,
Concrete.
Concrete, yeah.
Is that where you kind of started getting the entrepreneurial mindset, or was this something that you didn't really know you had at the time until later on?
I think I was kind of forced into it because the family business, like you don't punch a clock, right? So you're up, I remember being on the job site at like 7 a.m. So I was up at 6 o'clock, prepared the trucks to go. And we literally would work till the sun went down, and sometimes with the headlights on. I mean, we poured concrete. So
what age was this? Sorry, Jay.
11, 12, 13. So anytime I was on either break, after school, weekends.
You working?
I was working. This was Saturday, Sundays. Like it was a family business, so there was no clock. Like there was do or die. And my dad actually, even though he was a highway superintendent, he was close to retiring by this point, and he would actually come to work. So my dad was, in his 60s, and he's lugging around the concrete forms alongside of me, and I was a little shit, I wasn't big. I mean, I was 11, 12 years old. I mean, I was a $150.
Well, I've seen photos of you 11, 12 years old. You are big compared to the average 11, 12 year old.
I was bigger in high school, but as I got going, it's like that mindset was like, I watched my brothers just grind. And to this day, man, like my brothers, they're in their early 60s and they're crushing it, like still. Every day out there killing it, and they raised their families already. Their kids all worked for them and decided this isn't for me. It's the hardest work you'll ever do. Like that's why, like we talk about bodybuilding and there's nothing harder, but concrete sucked,
Did that give you a foundation when you went into bodybuilding to where the work ethic was natural?
It's like after that, I remember I literally would go to work in the morning and I would pray, please get me through this day, because I knew the day was going to be 14, 16 hours. Like I'm not kidding. When it was like literally we had we're going to be done by 5:30. You couldn't make any plans. And at the time, I mean, I was 12, 13. I used to watch these kids on vacations go on their trips and be tan and whatever else, and then their weekends they'd have to just do whatever they did. And I was just jealous, man, because I'm like, why do I have to work? Like my brothers and my dad would drag me out of bed in the morning, especially when I got into high school and I was partying like in sophomore. I mean, I dated like older girls at the time. Like when I was 14, I was dating an 18-year-old. And I mean, I had money because I worked, I was working crazy. I mean, my summers, when you're working 75 hours, I was paid, I think I was making $7.50 an hour. Do the math. I mean,
exactly.
I was making well over 500 back, and this was in the late 80s.
You were 14, you said then? 14,
But I bought a car at 14. I registered and insured it.
Wow.
And I drove without a driver's license. I didn't care. It was a 1981 Toyota Corolla, and I remember... So when I dated like this girl, I said, "Hey, you can just drive this car," and
she's like,
I was like, "As long as you come get me and take me out, to go places, I'll pay for the dinners and whatever else." I was going out, eat at nice restaurants.
Wow! So you grew up fast.
Yeah, I was taught to be a man early.
Yeah.
I mean, I bought my own school clothes at 11, and my dad never gave me $1 to do anything.
You said once in an interview that I saw that you felt like bodybuilding, to you anyways, it wasn't that hard, right? Do you think that's because of the way that you came up?
Yeah, I think everyone has this, like, I work so hard, and I'm kind of cursed in a way, because I remember my dad saying, you he literally told me, there's no time for fun. Your whole life is work.
Wow.
And, he told Angie, actually, he passed last year.
Yeah.
And he told her, like, as he was, getting to, he was close to 90, I think. She met him when he was 88. And he said, do me a favor, make sure my son enjoys, because I told him the wrong thing,
Wow.
and said, like, it's all about work. And I have this sickness because I don't have to do half the things that I do, and I continue to do it. But yes, it's easy for me to do everything after the foundation work and after being Mr. Olympia. Like, there's nothing that's difficult to me now whatsoever. So the problem is if you're looking for a challenge, the challenges are very limited now on what you want to do, because I don't have that mindset like, I want to be a politician, or, I want to take over the world, I guess. That's, everyone has their own way they want to do things.
So would you say the hardest part is probably finding balance?
It is.
Opposed to the actual work of each of those jobs?
It is, because, and I don't know how Flex you can relate to this, but you're structured for so long, and you just announced your retirement. I think I was in this lifestyle since I was 18, bodybuilding, but I basically, when I was a teenager, I did that concrete stuff, and, I was going to school and whatever else. So I feel I died at 18 and started over again, because I went from being like party kid, working, and I remember, like I said, my brothers and my father dragging me out of bed after partying on a, Friday or Saturday night, and being like, how am I ever going to go to work the next day?
Yeah.
And doing all that, and then I went to the extreme of, like, I didn't do anything other than eat, sleep, and train as a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
From 18 years, I joined the gym my 18th birthday, August 3rd, 1991. Like, I saved $300, and I bought that gym membership, and I said, I'm going to go full tilt.
Wow. So I can relate to some things that you said. I started up my business when I was in college, a moving company, and I was moving 2 to 3 people a day, how strenuous that is. And then when I got into really the sport of bodybuilding, they told me that you're not going to succeed by doing this, doing what you're doing. And that was such manual labor. Again, to me, it was second nature. My dad, was from steel factory, and he was in 40-something years in steel. My grandfather was a miner. So that blue-collar nature was always with me. So kind of, doing the moving company, I didn't want to fall into working for the man. I wanted my own business. I knew that. But again, when I transitioned I came to the US, seeing the lifestyle, and to go back to what you said earlier, I realized there was actually money in this sport. I tried to do 2 things for the longest thing, work and grow my moving company and bodybuilding, and there was no way. So then when I went, or shall I say when I came to the US and I just focused on bodybuilding, it was a very hard transition for me to switch off and just tell myself, no, I've got to rest. No, I've got to sleep longer, because I was so trained mentally and being around people of that nature too, like my dad and everything else, for me to switch off. Was that very hard for you to do so, going from, your upbringing?
It was, because I had a family that didn't understand. They really wanted me in the family business, right? So, when I finished high school, and I started playing sports in high school, so I actually started to get a little more social.
Yeah.
Because I was very introverted because of my upbringing, and we weren't really. I never slept over anyone's houses or anything like that. Like, I was just working, and any free time I really had. So when I was able to start playing sports, I started mixing with the kids, and I was pretty popular in high school. And when I made the decision to go off to college, my dad was all for it in a sense, but at the same time, like, okay, you still got to work.
Yeah.
And I had a falling out with my oldest brother, like in the summer, when I was 18, and we got into an argument at work, and like we didn't speak after that for almost 3 years.
Wow.
So that kind of helped me pivot without resentment of like, with the business, because I just didn't get along. I mean, 3 brothers working together was tough, right?
Yeah, sure.
And I knew everything at that point, right? And my brothers, we just had different personalities. So when I found, myself going off to college locally, you know, when I joined the Gold's Gym in Worcester, I started training 8 to 10 at night, and that gym time gave me a place that I never experienced before, because the stress was gone for those 2 hours. I spent from 8 to 10 at night training. And I overtrained, and I didn't know how to train. I watched the guys work out. I picked up scrapbooks, and I had studied bodybuilding. Like I said, I saw pictures when I was 12, and I had mingled with the weights some. I was always I could bench press 315 in high school. I didn't even lift weights. And I just, you know, I knew kind of the direction I was going to go. So it was easier for me to exit from that life and get into college and, you know, working towards you know, the physique change. Yeah. And that's really what saved me, is that gym became like almost like a meditation type.
Like a church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this the gym that you shot at Battle Olympia, where you had that?
Yeah,
little...
the towel.
Yeah.
So A Cut Above was the first DVD. I was 25 in that. That was the first year I did the Olympia. And that was the home gym. So I was like the hero there.
Yeah. How old were you then?
25.
That's bananas.
That was my first Olympia.
Remember that?
Yeah, of course.
So I don't think I've ever asked you this. Where the hell did that little piece of cloth come from? Is that something you've always done?
It was like a real little white towel that they would hand out in the gyms, and I washed it so many times that, you know, when it gets kind of old, you can rip the...
Yeah.
So I ripped the piece and I tied it, and I never realized social media has made that into like... They're like crazy about that bandana thing, you know?
I remember being in Wales, and there was some old school guys with their rag tops on, wearing this... Looked like rope. Honest to God. And they were going to war. It's like if they didn't have it, they couldn't train.
But you know what?
Crazy.
Truthfully, it was to keep in the sweat. I was dieting for a show. I was pretty ripped up, and you know, I was on thermogenics back then. I was taking, you know, ephedra and whatever. It was like real ephedra.
The good old days.
Yeah. So I was, you know, I would actually wear that headband. I was training with my ex-wife at the time. You know, she was like my training partner, and you know, they finished second to last at first Olympia. But that was where I started, and that's where I kind of like set the whole story forward. And I got noticed, and you know, I got a call from California when I was training there, and you know, Lou Zawick, who was like had a show American Muscle magazine, he started calling the gym and saying, you know, you need to get on stage. And you know, the history goes, like I competed in a couple of shows, and I did T Nationals against Branch Warren. Lost the overall to him, but won the heavyweights, and that was like the time where I said I want to be a professional bodybuilder. Got to travel to California in '93 and saw Gold's Gym. Ed Connors found me there, and the rest is kind of history. And I found what I definitely wanted to do.
I love coming over at 19 or 20 years old. Ed, very similar, you know, story. Ed brought me over, and straight away he was telling me about the old school stories about you, and stories that I don't know if he's put into his book. I don't know if you've seen his book.
He sent me the book.
Yeah. But I haven't had the chance to read it yet. Sorry, Ed. I know that I mentioned in the book, and something I'm very excited about. But having the chance to speak to Ed about all this stuff was amazing. You know, coming from the UK and staying with Ed. I think I stayed with Ed for maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and I heard all the great stories, the good and the bad. But you was always spoken about with such respect, and I think it's because you were a great house guest, I heard, and you lived to the T the bodybuilding lifestyle, very respectful, humble, driven, and I think you surpassed what Ed ever imagined of you. Because Ed told me, you know, I kind of years later I'd done the same thing, and I kind of think he puts you and I in that same category. Obviously, me being a 212, you being open class, but we have some very similar stories, upbringing and stuff. That's why I've always gravitated to you as well, especially on the business side of things. But again, without getting too far ahead, you came to California. What year was that? Did Ed bring you out?
You know, I went on my own because I went to watch the '93 USA. So I won the T Nationals in '93 in North Carolina, and then I found it was kind of funny. I was working with Chris Aceto at the time.
Yeah.
He was training Mike Francois, who was competing in the USA. Paul DeMeo was from my area. He also was competing for his pro card. And it just coincidental. Chris Aceto called me, and back then, remember, there's no internet, anything. It's newspapers, right? So he says, Jay, there's a misprint in the Boston Globe, round trip tickets to California for $99.
No.
And at the time, like, I'm broke, you know. I was working just miscellaneous. I think I was doing like security and whatever else. I think I was actually working on a golf course doing maintenance at this point, because I was just trying to fund like my chicken breast and whatever.
You've been there.
And, you know, so we called. It was, you know, Carrie and I, my ex-wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. She sat on the phone, and we rang up the Boston Globe, because once there's a misprint, they have to honor it, right? Oh. And literally at like 11:58 or something, I remember to a T, she got a hold of someone and they said, oh, that's a mistake. And she said, well, you have to honor it, right? And they said, yeah, we do. So we booked 2 round-trip tickets. We were able to fly to California in July of '93 to watch the USA. Now, this USA, Chris Cormier won.
Go you.
He wasn't really expected to, but DeMeo was in there. Mike Francois was second.
Yeah.
I got to see the Gold's Gym for the first time, and we were told by, you know, Chris Aceto linked us up with someone that was like kind of out there and knew about it, said, oh, stay at this hotel. It was on Lincoln, and you know there's a literally shady places in Lincoln. So he said, he said, you can walk to Gold's Gym. It literally was like 5 miles. So Carrie and I walked to Gold's Gym. And granted, I was in like the T. Michael sweatshirt and all this stuff. We walked to Gold's Gym, and we literally, I remember we were there for like 6 hours, and we were just watching the who's who of the actors, of bodybuilders, and it was hopping because the USA was in Santa Monica. Yeah. So we were in the gym, and Ed Connors was up in the glass in the little spy room there. I love that. And he saw me down there with the blonde hair. I just came off T National, so I was looking decent. I was like probably 230 or 40 at the time, rebounded back from 215. And he says, hey, who are you? Da-da-da-da-da. And I mentioned, you know, I know Chris Aceto, and Chris Aceto used to, you know, work for Ed. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, he's like, why are you staying at that place? I got to get you out of there. So he literally drove us to the hotel, checked us out, and Carrie and I stayed at Ed's house on the beach.
Oh, wow.
The expensive house that now is worth about $10 million, you know?
I think I stayed there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he had like lawn furniture in the kitchen and stuff. It was the craziest thing, because it was just like, he was only there to sleep, and then he'd go to the office, and he'd be at Gold's Gym all day, because his office was next door to the main entrance of Gold's Gym. So he took us there, took us out to eat. That's how our relationship started with Ed. So we actually financed ourselves, but then he put us in the house halfway through and said, you got to get out of this dumpy hotel. And then we developed our relationship. And sooner or later, he said, why don't you come back the end of the year? And I came back around November on a 1-month trip on my own. And that's when I was able to train amongst all the house guests. And I remember John Cena was working the front desk at one point. I was there, and I got to mingle with a lot of the top pros. And, you know, Lee Priest was just coming on the scene at the time. I know you guys kind of have this little rivalry, because who's the better, like,
I always say Lee, and Lee always says me.
Yeah. So dude, he was unbelievable.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Listen, no lie, if you said to me, I've seen Ronnie Coleman, obviously I competed with him, no one could ever blow your mind like Lee Priest looked when he was 21 years old.
Fucking nuts, right?
I walked in the gym, and I remember like looking at him and saying, how is that even possible? He could barely walk. His legs were so big. And I think he almost downsized as his career went on, but he was massive.
What do you think he was weighing when you seen him?
260, but he wasn't fat.
Yeah.
Right.
And, you know, he's shorter, but he was unbelievable. And I remember Ed Raven, you got to see this kid, you know, and I'm thinking, gosh, this guy's a year older than me. How is it possible? And I got to see, you know, Aaron Baker, who looked unbelievable. And, you know, obviously Cormier. Flex Wheeler was mind-boggling at that time, because he had got his pro card the year prior, and him walking in the gym and pulling up in expensive cars. And I'm like, I need to bodybuild. And I remember seeing Dorian Yates on the wall at the time. It only went to Dorian Yates because he was Mr. Olympia at the time. And I said, man, if I could ever I never imagined, but I said that would be amazing if I could get my picture. It's like, it meant something then,
absolutely.
Right? It's like books, like a magazine cover. But like, if you're on the wall at Gold's Gym Venice, that's like it's
made
like the
it.
Hall of Fame, right?
Pro cards were hard to get then too.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, but you were very elite. I mean, it went Haney, Yates. I mean, that's all. So it wasn't. There was no Ronnie Coleman yet, or you know, all these guys, right? So I was just floored by the Gold's Gym atmosphere. I mean, coming from Massachusetts, like being at that Gold's Gym, I mean, I thought we had a nice gym, but to go in 3 rooms of all the, and at the time, I think, like, you know, remember Hammer Strength hadn't even launched yet, really. So, like, all that equipment that was given to Gold's Gym, I think they used to just basically use as a showroom for equipment. They would try out, see what people's reaction was, and it was just hopping, man, and you know, I remember seeing, like, Keanu Reeves would train there, and I mean, everybody. Magic Johnson was there, Kobe Bryant, you know, Ron Harper from the Lakers, like, everybody. So for me, it was just like, man, I need to be here. And it's kind of funny because I didn't even move there for years. I mean, 5 years later, but you know, California was just, I mean, sure, it was like that with you, Flex. Like, it was a beast, right? I mean, just.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine going when you were there, because that, to me, I was looking at the magazines, and I was able to get some old magazines when I really started getting into it.
Yeah.
My first ever time walking into that gym, it was literally a Flex magazine, and I was just blown away, you know, and I understand exactly what you're saying. I probably I would walk from Ed's house, which you know how far that is. Ed was like, take a bike. I was like, no.
I rode a bicycle.
I couldn't do that. I was fresh off the plane. I was, you know, I had this, well, I would say I was so excited to be in in California, but then I was so scared because, and I don't mind saying this, my perception of America was cops, Baywatch, you know, whatever it was. So I was like, wow.
It's basically it.
Yeah. And I can go into many stories about Ed's house, but this is not my podcast.
But I know where you're from. I've been to the area you're from, and it's just like in the middle of nowhere, really, right?
Yeah. It's very
small town. Very small town.
Yes, you know, blue collar, steel.
Sheepshaggers.
It's very, yes, exactly.
Yeah, the roads are like this wide, you know, which is crazy.
Two-way.
Yeah.
So coming from there and landing, you know, and staying in Ed's house. I was actually Ed's last ever house guest in that
Really?
house. Yeah, I actually
What
helped
year
him
was
move.
that?
Oh my gosh.
We'll do the math. You were what, 20?
I was 20. Yeah.
Okay.
Do the math fast when I'm talking. And yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I'd walk to Gold's Gym. I'd walk into the place, and I would just be in awe. Like, I've seen, you know, fans come here and kind of, I come and live through them. But to go back in time and relive that, it's such a special moment. I can't describe them times. You can understand. And
I always say it's the aura.
Magical.
Because the breeze is coming through the doors, right?
Yes.
From the backside, and you walk in the front door, and you're just like, ooh. Like,
and you look around, and there's people training. You know, I went there, and there was, everybody was training for the Ironman. There was Lee Priest, there was Tom Prince, there was Hamid Haidar, and then you've seen Tito, Raymond, the regular gym guys. Chris Cormier was there. And
you only seen these guys in books,
on
right?
magazines. So, you know, coming from a very, you know, I'm trying to pick my words here, you know. You don't look at a guy that long. I was staring at these guys like this. Okay, blink, you can't look. I'd look back again. You know, too much of a stare is borderline. And obviously being in America, these guys didn't know me. And I just done probably one of the pet peeve things I hate being done to me. In the middle of a set, Tom Prince was doing a set, and he finished, and I went up to him, kind of the first guy I spoke to, and he was the nicest guy ever. And I heard these stories after the fact about Tom being so focused, and I went up to him, and he'd made a compliment to me about my legs, because I went there, and I was wearing them short little rugby shorts, not spandex, the short little rugby shorts, because that was normality to me. And there's me walking around Gold's Gym, and everybody checking me out.
You only had legs really then, right? The upper body wasn't as...
No, that's
I remember seeing pictures of you and saying, oh, this guy's legs are really good. He just needs an upper body, right?
Yeah. Whatever the age was, that was my upper body.
I was the same, you know, because I was very big in the legs, and my upper body just was behind. I was wide, but I just had a lot of gaps to fill.
Yeah. But... it was just, going back to what I was saying, it was just a magical place. And do you think that you making the move from your small town to Gold's Gym Venice, how much of a massive improvement at the time was that for you?
I was, Ed Connors kind of mentored me in a sense because, like, he was all about, hey, you need to be here because this is the business, right? And you need to be at Gold's Venice. And I always, I felt like popping in and out, but, I went back and forth for years. I competed at a show when I was 22 to qualify for nationals to earn my pro card. Tournament of Champions, which may have been one of the best wins of my career. You talk about, because I landed Muscle and Fitness for the first time, I was 22. I got to meet Joe Weider, and Joe Weider became a huge mentor to me, not only for bodybuilding, but for business and real estate and whatever else. But I didn't actually make the move until right after that, the towel tied to the head after I finished 15th at the Olympia. But I went back and forth, and I actually moved to Orange County. So I didn't move to Venice, actually. I did pop in and out, but I remember Ed telling me, if you're going to be out here, you have to show your physique off. And, there became those years that guys wore a lot of heavy clothing, and I was always kind of in a tank top and shorts because I stayed in great shape all year. And Joe told me, he's like, years after year, and I signed with him when I was 20. I won the Nationals 23, so it took me a couple years, and by the time I was 25, I moved there because he's like, I want to shoot you year-round. You stay in great shape. I wanted to be in Muscle and Fitness and Flex. Back then, that was the play, right? You were contracted to do that. And at the time, we would sit in these meetings, and I would go to Joe's house, and I would go to the office in Woodland Hills, and he would talk a lot about Arnold and how successful Arnold became. Obviously, he was in films at that point, but the real estate stuff, this thing doesn't last forever. He kind of convinced me, hey, this is a short-term play for you. You can be the best at what you do, but just make smart decisions, and I'm going to take care of you and look after you the best of my ability. But, you need to work, and you need to be available, and you need to pivot to other things. And, that kind of put my mindset where it wasn't necessarily all about bodybuilding. And that now migrated to why I became one of the most featured guest appearance persons to this day still. I still get out there and work a lot because I always looked at bodybuilding as a business, but I feel I could have been a much better bodybuilder.
How so? If
it made sense, because I traveled so much. I remember Steve Weinberger pulling me aside at one point, and I was battling Ronnie Coleman at my peak, and I said, and he said, Jay, if you're doing too much. You're working too much. If you just focus, and he came up with Yates, right? Yates was one of his closest friends.
Yeah.
And he watched how Yates worked, and I'm sure you hear the stories because you're actually, from there. But he later said to me when I was so successful, he said I was wrong, because the business built the afterlife for me, right?
Yeah.
But I did actually win the big one too, which is the case. But definitely California, when I did move there, Flex, I moved there in November. It was around Thanksgiving of 99.
Okay.
And I just came off a very disappointing 15th out of 16th at the Olympia. And I thought, man, am I good enough? But Joe still stuck up to his word. He paid me more money to move out there because I knew the increase. I went from having a $400 apartment in Massachusetts to paying $1,500 for a one-bedroom in Orange County. And at the time, that was a ton, right? And then I moved to, the dog and, Carrie and everything out there. And, I found a gym in California down in Orange County, and I woke up with a smile on my face every day after that. And I went and won the Night of Champions 6 months later, and that's where I started the heavy run. I placed, 8th at the Olympia, moved halfway up. And then I was able to get second to Coleman on the tours, including one in England. And then the next year is 2001, where I almost won the title. And, I really started getting popular in the books and getting a lot of work and guest appearances. And I started the website in 2000, jcutler.com, started merchandising all the clothing. And I was shooting the videos every year, all my videos. And back then, that was a huge revenue stream for us.
DVDs.
Yeah.
$40 DVD. I'd make $250,000 the first week of releasing those DVDs. That was our early social media. That
was.
If you look at social media today, and you look at any Jay Cutler video from the past, all of them are from my DVDs.
Yeah.
If it's not a staged thing, it's me eating on the DVDs
100%.
or whatever. So I have a young social media guy that helps me with TikTok, and he's like, man, you were way ahead of the game, because he's cutting all these 7-hour DVDs from Mitsuru Okabe and saying, there's so much great footage here.
Yeah.
I have a question, though, about that. So we talked about this, I think, last night, how there was no social media, or the form of media was different, right? What happens if you were bodybuilding today, right? You had all the social media. Do you think, how would that affect you? Would it change anything that you've done? Because you said you were introverted, right?
If you watch those old videos.
So that's what I'm saying. And then social media, you have to be out there.
I mean, I didn't say one word, and I remember.
You were all business.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, I'm going to tell you how I was, and you would know this. You kind of can see this with me, but I would tell Mitsuru Okabe, who filmed the videos, don't talk to me, don't ask me any questions, and just do not get in my way.
Yeah.
And if you watch any of the videos from here forward, all 7 or 8 that I did, you'd say, damn, like, he didn't say anything really. And then even the people that train with me, I'd say, I'm not spotting you, I'm not changing weights, and there's no cell phones allowed in here, because cell phones started to become apparent. We didn't have pictures and videos and stuff, but no phones allowed in the gym. And that was my motto. But I didn't want to spot anyone. I said, if you can't do the same weight, then you do the machine next to me, or do free weights. I was doing a lot of free weights at the time. I was kind of a prick,
You were focused. I don't think you were a prick, man.
And I don't think I would be great at social media, because it would take me a while to warm up to. I just don't know if I would be a content creator like that. I think I feel like I'm great now at my age for being someone that, it's kind of weird, and taking pictures like, hey, I'm taking my food right now, or whatever else, or hey, film this set, right?
Yeah.
But I applaud the kids that's why, like, I'm not anti-social media with the influences that don't have the accolades. I just don't understand it maybe as much. But if you ask the question, how would I adapt? Joe Weider told me one thing. He says, I will never put a bad picture of you in the magazine. And if you opened up a spread of back then, and you know this because I'm sure you read articles about Flex or whoever else, we were always up here.
Yeah.
Like, they made our lives seem like it was like platform perfect. And we all know that we all have our ins and outs and ups and downs, right? But that was the one thing about the books, is they always presented us in the best light. And unfortunately, social media does not catch some people. Like, you may be a fan of someone until you see them on social media, something people have got in trouble for what they've posted sometimes.
Yeah.
You just have to be more conscious. And the truth is I live life on my own terms, in a sense. Like, I just don't put certain things out there, but I'm not a perfect guy.
Right.
Okay. And I put out the media I want to, but there's so much more that goes on in my life. And I let the world see what I did on a DVD. Like, I went to Costco and I ate, and they saw the relationships. They saw the ups and downs of the competition, and how I thought it was bullshit when I lost. And I was good at that, but I feel that I have to give Mitsuru a lot of credit, because he knew how to edit that stuff in and out. And believe me, there was some stuff in there probably people would have a different view of me if they saw certain things, but he made us look good. I mean,
was it just how driven you were that kept you in that mindset at that time?
Doug, I mean, I think I honestly can say, sitting in this room, even with, one of the greatest ever, I think I did it better than anyone else. Like, I had that tunnel vision. I could shut things off. I know I missed some peaks or whatever else, but I did everything that, like, on a daily, better than anyone probably could, because I just dedicated my whole life to bodybuilding. And it stems from the background. Like, it stems from who I was surrounded by. My dad, my brothers. And then, I was with Chris Aceto. He was a great mentor to me. Someone that, preached everything to me. And, I mean, Ed Connors. And, I mean, Peter McGuff was a huge plus for me. Joe Weider was like a huge pusher for me, and I don't think a lot of the people had those relationships, but it is within yourself. You can't teach someone drive, focus, Like,
Absolutely.
it has to be upbringing that does that, right? And to separate the white noise that comes with all the craziness. And I made it to the top, and, I was one of the few that would, lost the title, came back to win it. But my vision was like no other, I feel.
Yeah.
It's probably nice that social media wasn't around because it allowed you to not have as much noise, right? I think today it's got to be a lot more distracting.
The phones are terrible in the gym.
Yeah.
I think you want to laugh. To this day, I don't carry a phone in the gym like when I train. Anything you see, most of the media, unless it's at the end of my workout, it's done.
Yeah.
So I'm going to spill some news out there. So, it's not necessarily me training, or it's someone else that's with me. I said, hey, shoot this video. But my phone is in my bag in a corner because I don't, the calls coming in and the texts, and I'm thinking about something else. Like, I need that time for myself.
Yeah.
Even though there's nothing body-wise I'm shooting for at this point, like, I just want to have an hour to myself.
Shut it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the Boca Dragon's Lair, the OG. Pull your phone out down there, and he'd be ready to throw it across the gym.
I remember when you come into the gym, and I'd look, and I was in prep too. I don't know if you know this, but I've got this nickname, Prep Lewis, they call me. And I was like a prick, if you want to regurgitate what you said. And I'd see guys who have been invited into the gym on their phone and be like, this is not the environment. But again, it's kind of, with us, it was like, one said, never done again.
Yeah.
But he knows that I would probably film the last butt set, never the top set, the money set, because I needed to have full focus and not be consciously knowing there's a camera on me. And I just want to revisit something you mentioned earlier. And this is the God's honest truth, and I can look at you eye to eye. I don't think that I would be the bodybuilder I am without Jay Cutler. And that's the God's honest truth. Because for me, I came into this with a business mindset. You were the top of the tree, but yet you would put so much into real estate, investments into this, into that. You had DVDs growing. There was no blueprint. There was no blueprint for me other than Jay Cutler. Obviously, after the fact, other athletes done it, but you were the first person to be like, hey, I'm a bodybuilder, businessman, bodybuilder. And I made my first DVD because of Jay Cutler. And did I know if I had a market for it? I don't know. But I just remember that you were pumping DVDs out, and I kind of targeted myself to the teens. I put a lot of money into the production side of things. But going back to the business side of things, I think you've been a great example, not only as one of the greatest of all time on stage, but take the on stage side away, but off stage too. You're always the first there at Expo, the last to leave. You've been able to basically be a chameleon from the T. Mitchell rag top days to where we are now. You've seen the change from the back to front hats to the style Jay Cutler, to the fitted clothes, keeping up with the times. I'm sure it was very hard for you. It was hard for me to go from print to social media, but to go from you being a hardcore print guy from the Joe Weider era to then be like, hey Jay, listen, this is the times now. We got to put you on social media. I know you touched on it too, but I'm sure it was a very hard transition, and a lot of athletes refused. Speaking of Flex Wheeler, he was like, I'm not touching social media. And then you realize, oh, man, I wish I did now. You are one of the first bodybuilders, to my knowledge, that jumped on this foreign platform before even I got on, Jay.
Yeah, it's who I surrounded myself with. So to go back, like YouTube, 2008, I started this Swollen Monkey production. So I had a whole crew around me training. And, we talk about the entourage. I truly had an entourage, right? So, when you're on top, like, the world comes at you, and you kind of pick and choose. So I had, Dave. Dave was my hype guy from day one. I met Dave in 2003, right? So
you all love Dave. Shout out to Jay.
Dave was on the message boards telling everyone how I was going to win every year, right?
Mad Max 6.
Yeah. So I had him, and then I had Eric DeLauro in California. He'd come and train with me just because he wanted the hype, whatever, and then I'd have all these other guys that would help me at events or, just come to the gym, and we'd have we roll in these gyms with 8 or 10 people a lot. So we'd have to split up the training pack. So Brian Glynn was kind of like my early social media guy. So he would have a handheld and he'd film these Swollen Monkey production videos, and we put it all on film. And of course the gyms, the Gold's gyms at the time allowed it to go on. And I was shooting DVD before anyone was monetizing on YouTube. I don't know when all that monetization started, but we weren't monetizing because we put, we had the music playing in the background or whatever else. And then slowly, like, media started creeping up, and then the magazines had these, I signed with Muscular Development, Flex, where exclusive content. So they're like, we don't want you to put this content. So I had to halt YouTube. Right now, I would have had a crazy ass YouTube channel right now.
They never asked me to do that.
Yeah, so they asked me to stop, and they said, we want all the content on our stuff. So that's what halted the YouTube for a long time. And then, as Instagram came out in 11 or 12, I hired a young assistant. He was 19. And he's the one that he's like, hey, you need to start this thing called Instagram. And I said, what is it? He's like, you post your pictures and whatever else. And I think the first picture I put was like my cars, and then the second one was like Drake. I had pictures with Drake at the time. Drake was just he was just coming out then. And we started this whole Instagram thing. So if it wasn't for him, and he actually started all the merchandising to launch Cutler Athletics. I was doing just like memorabilia, T-shirt, and the pictures and stuff. But
Is that Larry?
Yeah, Larry Jr. Yeah. So so I ended up doing a lot. He came up with designs, and he actually moved in my house. And at the time, I was selling shirts out of my garage, and I was just like, okay, this is just extra selling on the website. I was running ads in the magazines and whatever else, and then of course we started utilizing social media, and I'm selling $1 million of T-shirts out of my garage. My whole garage was like clothes. And I started the print shop off guys. They were like 16 years old, and they become like a huge thing now here, stoked on printing, and like it was crazy. I was able to adapt, and sooner or later, I moved to Vegas for real estate. A lot of people don't realize that. They think, oh, he left California because he was, coming here for the Olympia because it was here. But in 2002, I moved here. In the house you came when you were young.
Yeah.
I built that house for like $300K.
Dang.
And I sold it for $1 million,
Wow.
like 4 years later. But I bought a house every show that I won. Like 03, I won 7 contests. I bought 7 homes in 03. I was, in with, I was a flipper. So I was building homes and making money, and then I got into rental properties, and that's really what gave me the momentum financially, was investing my money into that, and it was just easy after that.
And nobody else was really doing it.
No,
and they were spending it.
9/11 happened, and everyone was scared, and I was starting to really come on then, because 2001 Olympia, I was able to get second. I won $60K, and at the time I was doing guest appearances. Back then I'm making $3,000 a weekend, and then I was doing the T-shirts and stuff out of my house and whatever. And then of course it just exploded after that, so it was great. And then I started just cranking, and next thing you knew, it was it was off to the races.
Do you feel like you got to enjoy your peak? Really, like in the moment? No. Do you think you ever did?
No.
Do you regret it at all?
No, I don't regret it. I don't regret it at all. I just, I feel like I can reminisce now.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest question is, would you changed anything?
Yeah.
And I don't think I would have changed much. There's other, obviously, contests I might have done or not done. Definitely when I came back in 13, I would have came back in 14 for the 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
So it would have given me some time. But, those Olympia years, like, they just went so fast. And I thought being second I was a great business guy and I was busy. But when you win the title, it's a whole different beast.
Yeah.
It propelled me to next level. And then, of course, being second to the greatest bodybuilder ever, it gave me a huge opportunity. And,
I think, but you were so driven. It's like, I can understand why you wouldn't have regret. It's likely you may not be in this exact moment, in the position that you are. Had you have, maybe partied more, enjoyed it more, let off the gas.
Yeah, my social life was the gym and being away on the weekends. Obviously that caused a demise in my marriage. I never had children. That was one thing that, I thought about, and it was like I became, overconsumed with business. And, I was traveling all the time, and it would never stop, right? Yeah. So today, it's like I have a different perspective on how busy I am. I still have to make, like we said, to find that balance. It's a lot easier when you're not grinding. And that's, I texted you when you made the announcement, and I said, get ready for the best years of your life. I can honestly say I retired just when I had turned 40, and between 40 and 44 were the best years of my life. And people would say, man, you won the Olympia in those years. But man, it was, your life really begins at 40.
Yeah, you and
Amen.
I. Yeah,
You're 40 yet?
I just turned 40.
Yeah.
And you're not.
No, I'm not close.
38. But we've spoken many times over the years, and you've given me some great information. And I always would revert back to asking you, especially when I was in my peak and I was trying to force the food. And for whatever reason, you would always pop into my mind when I was struggling. I don't know why.
Because you watch the videos, and it would take me an hour to eat a meal. And
Horrible.
then you have to eat
I had
again.
no appetite either, and I just thought to myself, how the hell was Jay eating 10 plus meals a day, getting up, doing this? I mean, there's no question I'm focused. There's no question about that. I'm so passionate about what I do, and I was because I was force feeding these meals in, I was losing what I've always loved, and that was bodybuilding, because I was just like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. And then I'd go into this mindset and stuff. How did you keep yourself motivated all them years? Okay, you were chasing and chasing and chasing, and then you finally got it, right? You've accomplished what you've strived to be for all these years, and that's the best of the best, Mr. Olympia. How did you keep yourself motivated to keep on? Because there's a difference between the chase and then winning it, and then keeping the title.
Yeah, defending is different.
It.
Yeah.
if you look at the history, I was better at chasing it than defending it, because I think, I got to that peak, and I honestly won the Olympia, and I haven't said this in a lot of interviews, but I'm like, damn, this is it. Like, I expected so much more when you win the Olympia. And granted, it was, listen, you do it, at 12, I picked up the books, and then at 18, I became a teenage champion, and then I got my card at 23, and you're, like, looking at Dorian Yates on the wall at Gold's Gym, and I'm like, okay, I'm that guy, right?
Yeah.
And first of all, I lose 4 times to the same guy. I finally beat him. He's going for record 9. I feel bad because this is my idol. Yeah. So I had mixed emotions when that announcement's made, right? Because I just kept this guy from getting 9. I'm winning my first. What am I going to do? How am I going to handle him? And that was my thought process. So instead of me being like, oh man, I won this title and it was like, damn, how am I going to handle Ronnie Coleman at this point? And then, the next year he comes back. He's a shadow of himself, right? He finishes 4th, and I have an infection, and Victor Martinez almost wins, right? So it was hard. It was probably the worst Mr. Olympia of my life, was the one I won against Victor. Because so many people thought he should have won. So I thought, okay, no, wait, I'm going to come back. I'm going to be better than ever. And granted, I'm traveling like crazy, and of course I'm off again. Dexter wins. I lose. And then here we are, 2009. I come back, and everyone's like, oh, he's just going downhill. And I come back, and I quad stomp my way to victory.
Fucking smashed
and
it.
For the first time. I went through a lot of trial and error with that. And granted, at the time, I was, the highest paid in our business, and financial, whatever else. You can talk about that and what people are driven because financial reasons. But, I really wanted the title back, and I really think I should have retired after 2009, because I came back in 10 and I won, and, Heath was coming on, and then, of course, 11 I got injured and lost to Phil. And then in 13 I came back and finished 6th, whatever. I took the year off after tearing my bicep, and, I went through a whole life change with divorce and losing my pets that I had for so long, and, it was just a different time for me. I went through some dark moments then, and then I was able to come back in 13. But for me, it's just, I was very driven, like you said, Doug, and I knew it was my job.
Yeah.
But I got bigger than I wanted to be. The food was outrageous. It would take me, I would eat 7 meals a day, like during that era, and I would take an hour to eat every meal. I was eating a pound of meat almost, like 12 to 16 ounces of anything. 75 grams of carbs at least, whether it's rice or potatoes or, and Hani was different from Chris Aceto. I switched to Hani for the 2009 comeback, and working with different coaches, trying to change my mindset. Like, I had to kind of figure out who I was. But the real reason it was difficult for me after Ronnie Coleman's because I was uncertain how I needed to come in because we were the two biggest. And for the longest time, the Olympia was built around Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler, and then it was everybody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unfairly in a certain way. But
it is what it is. Exactly.
Yes. So when you were coming to see me in 05 and 6, like, it was us.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, do I need to come in as big? Do I need to come in? So I tried to downsize and say, okay, I'm going to be lighter. I'm going to go back to 2001 and be 260. It doesn't work like that.
No.
So I need to figure out my body. So there's a little confusion because I didn't have the best bodybuilder in the world next to me. I never thought Dexter Jackson would beat me. I never thought Phil Heath, the kid I found in 2005 at a show, would come up and be a challenger to me.
Yeah.
He was third when I lost in 08. And then 09, you know, I came back and smashed him, and, like, I rewrote history. You know, I was the greatest thing in the world. And at the time, I was working on the Hercules film that The Rock ended up doing. I actually had that script, which is crazy. I met with Stan Lee, and I was in California. I was migrating. I had spent time in California at a condo there. And I had this whole vision of becoming a movie star for a minute.
Yeah.
And I think back now, and I think I was kind of crazy because I was like 290. And
I'd love to see you as Hercules 290.
On camera, that looks interesting.
Yeah, so it was just a different opportunity. Like, I was on top of the world, man, and like those were some of the greatest memories. And I was training in Gold's Venice, and you walk in there, and you like the respect factor because you were able to come back and smash competition, and you know, that was the peak. And then, of course, you know, I come back and win it again in 10, and then, you know, slowly you start fizzing out. And, you know, those are good old days because you still had the books, and, you know, we didn't have social media yet.
Yeah.
I remember a magazine cover that just had Phil and Dexter, and then
Did you remember the magazine cover where they just had them? And it was...
And yes, I remember seeing it, and then I picked it up, and I was like, this is fucking disrespectful.
Yeah.
I remember thinking that myself, and I was sponsored by Weeder at the time. And
I was too.
I think it was Alan Donnelly that done the cover, and then you done the best thing.
I said, these motherfuckers, I said.
Yeah.
So the cover was me tearing the book.
Unbelievable.
And I have it as a huge poster now. And I was so mad, and I said, I can't wait to leave this deal. I actually tried to exit the deal prior to that show, and I said, I'm going to leave this deal when I signed the Muscular Development biggest contract ever with them.
It pissed you off that much?
Yeah. And I left Weeder totally because I started the whole magazine endorsement thing. So I had first, you know, Muscular Development and Weeder at the same time, right? They let me do both. So, and that's kind of how it came about.
And the Quad Stomp was born.
Yeah, which was never a thing. Like,
iconic.
I just looked down at my leg, and the crowd reacted, and I stomped it, and like it's one of the best poses of all time now.
So you was talking about the movies and getting into that role. Is there anything else that you kind of wish you'd done back when you were kind of on the top as a competitor?
Not necessarily, because I did the business. I think I did everything a bodybuilder could do. You know, I started the apparel, and you know, I was endorsing Muscle Tech at the time, which was, you know, the biggest contracts, and I felt like they publicized me a lot, and I had great opportunity. I met a lot of great people. I didn't travel a lot overseas. I waited until I retired to do that. I wish maybe I would have gone overseas a little more because I feel like, you know, I missed some of the culture. Yeah. Being able to visit, that was our big fan base, right? I mean, bodybuilding's bigger overseas than it necessarily is here. Yeah. A lot of business to this day is being done internationally, even you know this.
Yep.
I mean, and, I've met a lot of great people, and I honestly think a lot of my success has come from the relationships I built and being open-minded and having the patience. And when I get on a plane and I'm miserable because I hate to fly, it's the worst thing. So every weekend I have this, and Angie always says, you're in a bad mood. I know why. You're getting on a plane and it's just, if I could snap my fingers and I could get from one place to the next, that would be ideal for me. But, I said when we faced this pandemic that I was going to become a social media person and not travel as much. But then, of course, I got back to face, and here I am, the busiest year of all time for me when I was on top. So it's just crazy. I mean, you texted me this weekend, and I was in Virginia for the Nut Bash, which you've been at before. They spoke very highly of you there, and
thank you.
That was a 2-day event.
Yes, it is. Is it hot there?
It was warm because it was an outdoor
event, yeah.
And then you had texted me, and then you followed up with me and like, hey man, I'm like, dude, I'm trying to get home. Like, I just want to get on this plane and get home. And I'm like, let me sort my schedule. I said, I'll text you early because we text super early in the morning. I was
up early.
You're up early. He's up super early in the morning, which is rare for a bodybuilder, by the way. Like,
it's a new thing.
I was gonna say it's a new thing.
Okay,
there's more of a retirement thing.
Retirement.
I'm up at like 4 or 5 o'clock. I don't sleep a lot, so I sleep like 5 hours. Granted, when I was on top, I slept a lot more.
But same right now too.
My mind is just like
same.
I wake up with so much. I start texting or calling all my staff, and I'm like, "We got to do this," and they're like, "Damn, Jay!" Like, and I don't drink caffeine. Yeah, they're like, "What the hell are you doing up?" And what? Like, I just dream of these things, and I wake up, and I'm like, "Fuck, I gotta get this out right now."
I know. That's what makes it great, though.
No, it's. I'll never stop.
It means you're passionate.
Yeah,
about all of it.
I'm super excited. I mean, I work in a ton of brands now, and like I said, I need the challenge, right? And I don't have like certain goals necessarily. I know people write their goals. I do week-to-week goals, but like all these people want these big acquisitions, and like, man, I'm just gonna sit on a beach the rest of my life. I'm not doing that shit.
No.
What is a perfect vacation for you, Jay?
Man, you know what? I'm good for about a day or two. Of anywhere, and then I'm like, dude, I live on a permanent vacation being here. Like I have a choice. We have a choice where we want to live. I know you migrated from Florida. I know you lived in a million places, but
Gypsy.
Like I live in, I feel paradise. Like, I mean, what else could you? We got the best restaurants. We got the best gyms.
I love it.
We move around easy. I mean, it doesn't rain, so granted it gets a little hot, but like, we don't work outside. I'm not doing concrete outside. And
very true.
Also a great place to network.
It is.
Networking.
Right? A lot of people come here. There's... Yeah.
And, I hope your transition has been great here. I mean, your business it seems off the hook. And I mean, a lot of people talk very positively about the community that you've created here. And you have competition. And I know there's other gyms that they're talking about opening here, but the culture is everything. Like, it's just, I mean, you did the event with, I was talking to Joe about the squat off, and I'm sad I missed it because I'm gone every weekend, And, this is your challenge now to build like this. I know you like that. Like, you're very family orientated, and I don't know what else. I mean, I'm sure you're working on other projects too, and I know you're an entrepreneur, and the real boss is here. But
exactly.
Having a child now, and like, your goals change, right? And I'm sure it's a monkey off your back to say, you know what? I know for me, every show I got ready for, I was like, okay, I got to put my business somewhat on hold to.
Oh yeah.
Even though I had a great base around me, and Angie's like a huge, like, she works in the business with me doing all my brands, but like, it must be a huge weight off your shoulders now to realize, okay, I can focus on being, number one, a dad, a husband, but all these business ventures that maybe you sat in the sidelines and this guy's been in your ear to do, like, you can now fulfill those because you made the official, I'm not going to be competitive any longer, or maybe that.
That's true.
You're going to go through that mind of like,
No, he's not competing again.
Yeah, she knows.
Yeah.
Okay.
He'll do something else.
Yeah, it's crazy. The monkey's off my back. Obviously, shout out to Doug there for finally, convincing me. He convinced her within seconds. But if you can remember, I was going to move here many years ago. I spoke to you, and I don't know if you were kind of worried about me moving here, but there's a lot of things that you can get sidetracked on too, living in Vegas. And I was young. Ed was doing some real estate out here. I think he was working with Betty Weezer.
He lived at the Weeder's house.
That's right. And he was trying to convince me to move into one of the houses whilst it was getting worked on, construction. I was like, I ain't living in a fucking building site. Obviously, I didn't end up coming here. But I think everything happens for a reason, because had I moved here then, I don't think I would have had the career I don't know, but I don't think I would have been as focused, because obviously there's things and events that have gone on to create this storyline I have, right? Maybe if I came out here and I didn't have the money to invest into real estate, which brought you out here, God knows what I could have got into. I'm focused, but still. So Vegas has always held like a very special place in my heart. I come out here significantly, especially when Doug moved here. So it was always our goal in the end, to have a secondary home here, something I could use, come out here with Monster on, hang out with my boy, do the Olympia prep from. I always remember watching yourself and Sean Ray, because Sean said he had a secondary house here that he'd come out to, and I kind of in my head was like, that's cool, that's what I want to do. And look at me now. I mean, I've done the whole gypsy thing. I've moved from West Coast to East Coast, back to the West Coast. But the move, and every state I've lived in has taught me so much too. I've had a little bit of culture from everything. Moving to Reno, to Tennessee, to Florida, and everywhere else in between, obviously coming from Wales. I feel like it's taught me a lot. It's taught me how to speak to certain people, because, there's different cultures, and how you talk to certain people is key. And being in Vegas is such a melting pot. Again, and networking is a massive part here. I think it's taught me everything I needed before coming here. So that happens for a reason.
I'm sure it's a big switch, because you had a so private studio gym to open up to. I know you still like, this is your like dungeon, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, well, I have other people coming in. Yeah. So that was I'm sure you had to handle the community a little different, right?
Still hold on to it a little bit when we clean.
Well, what, actually, you bringing that up, I always want to ask this. You said when you first got in the gym, right, that was like your time. You could clear your head. Obviously, today, it probably isn't the same, because you're going to get approached. People are going to come talk to you, take pictures. Do you wish at times that you could just have that silence like you used to have?
I kind of do, to be honest. And, I don't want you to take it offensively. I don't train here a lot, because of, obviously, there's a lot of people that come in and out, right?
I know.
And you've given me the invite, hey, come like later or whatever else, and I appreciate that. But you remember, we live pretty far, right?
Yeah.
Even though I drive a Tesla now, I know you're still sucking up the gas, With the cars I drive, I shouldn't be complaining much about gas prices, right? But, I kind of stay at the more quiet places. And if you remember, when I was training for Olympias, I would train in the middle of the night. And you asked me why I did that. Number one, people used to camp out at the gyms. They'd wait all day for me to show up.
Yeah.
And I
appreciate that, right?
Yeah.
But there were days, man, that you just don't want to talk to anybody.
Right.
I know.
No.
That's why I was curious, because I feel like that's the one element, like training, most people, they get into it, it's their escape.
Well, it's their time to be social, right? Yeah. But it's a job for you.
Right. I mean, like, I like the gym because that's my mental escape.
Right.
Right. But if you're going to talk the whole time, it's not at all.
Yeah.
And listen, it's not my job anymore. So I appreciate you saying, well, it's, you said it's my job, but it is my meditation. It's my time that I can take. I train for like 45 minutes now.
Yeah.
That I can like shut off and just be like, okay, can I just get a workout? And I'm not like going for weight records, or even like, I barely get crazy pumped up anymore or anything. But for me, I need it for just that time. Mm-hmm. And it just, after a long day being at my office or handling calls, I just like, man, I just got to shut off. And, most people drink or smoke or do whatever, and I go to the gym and work out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's kind of like my outlet. So that's where I'm just more in the quiet zone. But one of these times, I'm going to take you up on a time to maybe come over and hit a little set. I still want to do a workout together, and
I still want to do a workout.
Yeah.
Man, it's the other way around.
I'm going to wait till you're like 180, and then I'm going to...
It's coming down. It's coming down.
Yeah.
It's coming down. I think I'm, 213
I saw you
now?
you saw a scale. I saw 213 yesterday.
Yeah. I've been running. I've been doing a lot of life changes.
I see, man. It's
focus.
You're going to go through these, like, okay, you're going to have to, like, you're floating until you find what you land in.
Yeah.
I got my teeth into a couple of things, which has kind of given me that excitement, and I've said this in the last podcast, that scary energy that I would put into every single prep. But I knew it when it was time. I remember you and I talking, and this is how much Jay travels for the fans. I tried to have, I think I'm going to retire conversation with you for so many times, and then I put it off. How many times did I bring it up to you?
Yeah, a lot.
And she was like, speak to Jay.
But you know what I told everyone? I said, he's not going to compete.
Yeah.
I kind of knew because, the child and
Did
and
you
the business, and I knew, like, listen, I was you.
Yeah.
And I knew the transition of, like, life.
Yeah.
And, you achieved greatness, dude. Like, 7 times in a row is, you set the standard for, 212. You were 202 at first? Or?
202.
Yeah.
So,
212, yeah.
And, being around this guy, I know he's a good influence on, like, okay, we can do so many great things. And
all depends what day it is.
But that's why I was, and I know she's really pushing, I'm sure. Are you limited on how much you're doing now because of the child, or?
Well, yeah, I didn't get cleared yet to come back, but I always supported, for me, I always did want it, like a fan, I wanted to see him on the stage.
But you were a competitor. Like, you were great at what you did, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. We don't need to talk about that.
Ali won the Miss USA, and she won the New York Pro
right here.
Yeah, New York Pro, Jacksonville Pro, overall Miss USA.
Listen, I watched you too, and when you guys linked up, and I'm like, man, this is really good, and developing, now the business partnership, and raising the children, man. I know you have your boy now, and
beautiful.
It's quite something, man, and I'm really happy for you guys.
Thank you, Jay.
There's a lot of positivity you guys bring to, obviously this community. I mean, we have a lot of gyms. I go to a lot. We have a lot of big commercial gyms, but this, you have a lot of your great trainers here that I have obviously relationships with, and Justin, I know him for a long time, and
you're a celebrity, man. It's the crazy thing is about coming to Vegas. You're the king. Mm-hmm. You're the king. You're in Vegas. Everywhere I go, no matter if
I'm just known.
If I had 20, you would definitely know, my friend. If I had 27 212 Olympia titles, I would always be in the shadow of Jay Cutler everywhere I go. If I get my car washed, if I go to a gas station, if I go to a high-end sushi place or a steakhouse, everybody come over. Flex, it's so great to have you. Thank you very much. And Jay Cutler, it's always the case, right? And I love it, to be honest, because it's always a conversation that can be started, and everywhere I go, even the nightlife out here, it's always, before I even moved here. Jay Cutler, yeah.
I used to run with nightlife, man.
Yeah.
Listen, we went through all our stuff.
Day clubs was your thing, right?
No, I went to all of it, man.
Oh, really?
Back then,
I was dating, and there's a lot of talent in Las Vegas, and I ended up with a great one, and she's been by my side doing a lot now, and our time is still a little limited because of, obviously, we work together, and it's hard to have that chemistry, and ideas come and go with other outside sources too. But it's always good to work with great people. And
how was that dynamic changed for you since you went from being a bodybuilder, you were single, obviously, for some time? How was the relationship with Angie changed everything?
She was a competitor, so she understands it, right?
Yeah.
And it's you always need that support system, I feel like, and understanding. And listen, I love to train as she does. I mean, she's working out as we speak. I know you asked if she was coming today, but unfortunately for me, like, my whole life is business, man.
Yeah.
It's a curse. Like I said, I still, every time I think outside of, like, we go on vacation, it's like, hey, man, did we get this done or that? And
I have the same illness.
When you're an entrepreneur, Flex, like, it just doesn't stop. I'm sure you're looking at the cameras of the gym all the time, and
on the wall behind you.
Yeah, I mean, it's what it is, and that's what makes you successful. And we look at success in many different ways, right? A lot of people look at the monetary thing, right? But for me, it's like, how much success and how much wealth do you have in life? Mm-hmm. Like, are you fulfilled?
Yeah.
And as a bodybuilder, I looked in the mirror at myself, and I never was fulfilled. I always thought, okay, I can tweak this or that, right? And there was never anyone I looked at that said, I want to look exactly like him. I mean, Ronnie Coleman, who we probably all agree could be the greatest bodybuilder, Mr. Olympia winner ever. like there was still some things that, hey, I feel like I could have looked better than he or whatever else body parts, whether it's abs or thigh cuts or whatever. I feel that way with my business model, with everything that I do. Like it's every day is like, okay, I can be better at this or that. And there's always someone that does better than you, right? And we all have our mentors that we looked upon. And I mean, I'm sure there's pieces of what I do and what he does and, you know, other people in the industry that you say, I just want to kind of be a little closer to that. But in the end, it's your own thing. You know, you're your own person. You can sit there and say, well, you're the king of Vegas, but you know what? Lock your place in. You know, you like I said, it's everyone's. I told Phil Heath that years ago when he was coming up, and he used to say, Jay, and I said, listen, man, you're all man.
Yeah.
Do it and run with it, and you know, we all find our way, and in the end, our legacy is everything. So your legacy is just getting started. Like you did your stage thing. Now, I mean, people look at you as hey, I want to, like Flex Lewis does a lot in business, like. Man, run with it. Just do it.
Well, I'll end with this last thing. Going back to when I came over to your house, what year was it?
05 was the first one.
Myself, Chris Gethin, I was invited over to do an interview. Chris was doing the interview. I was just tagging along, and this was what 2 days after the Olympia, maybe 2 or 3 days after the Olympia.
Yeah, we're still pretty tan in that calf picture we posted up.
Well, I know I've said this to you before, but that was kind of a very pivotal point for me. Changed my life. I don't know what memories you have of this, because I know there's a lot of people come and gone in your house during that time. But imagine being a 21-year-old kid, you know, getting invited over to somebody who was an idol. Still is, before you know, jump off the podcast, and walking in and just seeing the life that you created through bodybuilding. I was broke. I was sleeping on a sofa, Tennessee. Had very little going for me other than hope. Whatever money I had, I was using for bodybuilding, and whatever money I had outside of that was going to bodybuilding. Walking into your house, seeing this beautiful, you know, home that you achieved through bodybuilding and investing, seeing the quads, seeing the cars, the bikes, the magazine covers that were there, and then you give me the most muscular Arnold Classic trophy, open up your cabinet and give it to me, and you were like, one day you could win the Arnold Classic. I always remember that. And I was
That's
just
all I had then, because I didn't have Sandow's yet, because that was the first year.
Yeah,
right?
But I just was just blown away, you know. That to me, again, whether you knew it or not, but I really appreciate that moment, because it was me and you and nothing else existed. And for a kid who had doubt, you know, more doubt sometimes than anything else, but I had to stay positive, couldn't show anybody that doubt. I had to be focused forward, and I'm going to do this. I've left all my creature comforts to then be like, wow, this can be achieved in bodybuilding if I really, really work hard. And that moment was special, mate. So thank you very much for that.
That's
really
awesome.
was. It was a life-changing moment, mate. Thank you.
It's an honor to hear that, you know.
Yeah.
You never imagine, like, the impact you leave on people's lives is greater than my crazy trophy room, you know, probably the best in the business. You know, this is what means the most to me, so it's great to see, and that's why, like, you know, I'll just cheer you on from afar, and
Thank you, mate.
keep pushing forward, and congratulations.
Well, man, it's been an honor to have you here. Episode 5.
I got my number 5.
Yes.
The legend.
Great hanging out, man.
One of the greatest of all time. I appreciate living in the shadow of you here in Las Vegas. The king. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Straight Out to the Lair, episode 5. Done.